The government seems to have been caught off guard by the oncoming mortgage crisis, but they shouldn't have been. That's because Martin Lewis warned them about what would happen in October last year. On GMB this week, they played a clip of Lewis from October, then got him to provide an update.
Look at those affordability tests. Look at things like mortgage holidays. Look at things like allowing people to be more flexible, extend and reduce their terms. And look at forcing the banks, with the extra money they're making by putting mortgage rates up and not putting savings rates up, at much stronger forbearance measures for people who can't pay. Regulator, Bank of England, government, you need a mortgage emergency plan now, or there's a ticking time bomb.
Well, Martin joins us now. They didn't heed your warning, Martin.
No, well, they sort of did, and that's what makes it even more frustrating. On the back of that call in December, the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, held a mortgage summit. It was the bosses of all the big banks, the head of the regulator, him and me. I did actually ask for other mortgage specialists and charities to go with, but he wanted to keep the meeting small. So it was a very closed meeting. We sat in there in that mortgage summit. I raised the same issues, the same as I'm raising today. I talked about banks increasing their margins. In other words, they're putting mortgages up and they're not putting savings up by as much, so they make more money. And what we really need is soft or hard political pressure right now to say to them, either you make things better for mortgage holders or you make them better for savers, or best, you make them better for both. You stop profiteering on the back of increasing interest rates. But we got a lot of the banks sitting there and nodding. And many of the things I suggested, they argued they were already doing. Like you could change your term, you could take a payment holiday, you could reduce the amount you pay temporarily, you could switch to interest only. But the big problem for me is they haven't made that easy. And what I was suggesting in that meeting is, first of all, those things need to be made reversible so that you know that if you can do it temporarily, you can go back without a problem. That isn't the situation. And second, they need to look at minimizing the impact on people's credit scores, because that puts people off taking a form of action. It scares them that they're going to be disenfranchising themselves from other forms of borrowing for 6 years. But again, that hasn't happened. So the ultimate result of that mortgage summit was a tiny bit more communication to borrowers, but not the whole-scale communication about what you do if you're in trouble. And we haven't really seen much change. So the truth is, you've just seen that clip. That was last October. They can't say they weren't warned. I said at the time it was a mortgage ticking time bomb, and I'm afraid that time bomb is now exploding.
I was a bit confused about what Martin Lewis meant about going back from mortgage holidays. So was Richard Madeley, so he asks about it. Martin Lewis then goes into an answer which I think really sums up where we are in Britain right now. Have a look.
When you say that if you take a mortgage holiday, there's then a problem when you go back. What do you mean?
Mortgage holiday is slightly different. Mortgage holiday, forgive me, that was misphrasing by me. Mortgage holiday is more difficult to get. It's about the changing your term, and in order to reduce what you pay. It's about shifting to interest only temporarily. It's about giving people flexible tools. And this is really important because, ultimately, there is very little that we can do to protect people. If interest rates are going to be high over 3 or 4 years, people are going to have to readjust their finances. There is nothing else we can look at. They're going to have to readjust their finances. And that's going to be a nightmare. I can't see this government bringing in a mortgage rescue package, even if it wanted to do so. The whole point of putting interest rates up, let's be absolutely blunt here. You put interest rates up to remove money from the economy. You do that by giving people less disposable income. So in a way, putting interest rates up is having the desired effect by squeezing people on mortgages. And what we saw last winter, and will continue to see, is energy bills being so high, and they're still going to be that high this winter, is effectively taking money out, disposable income out of the lowest and low to middle earners. And now the mortgage squeeze is going to take it out of many mid to high earners. We are taking money out of the system. And that's why we put up interest rates. I just think we need to think very carefully. Do we really want to do that to people? Do we really want to push the economy to contract that much? And remember too, and I mentioned this in the mortgage summit, the impact on mortgages has a big knock-on effect for many renters who are seeing record proportions of their disposable income going on rents at the moment that's making that unaffordable. And we are heading for trouble. And I think, the whole point of what I called for last October and why we had the meeting in December was the idea was you have to come up with the plans and put some of the mitigation measures in place before you get to the crisis. Because when you do it once you're in crisis, it's already too late. And
Martin,
we had that meeting,
and
we didn't do it.
Now, I just thought that was so well put, right? So he's saying, how have the government gone about taking demand out of the economy, right? First of all, there was an energy crisis. Obviously, the government didn't cause that, right? But there was an energy crisis which put energy prices up. That hit the spending power of people at the bottom of the income spectrum. Why did it only hit people at the bottom of the income spectrum? Obviously, everyone got increases to their energy bills. But if you're very wealthy, then you get an increase to your energy bill and you know, it doesn't make that much of a difference to your budget. You're not going to cut back on what you normally spend your money on, your leisure time, your theatre tickets, because your gas bill's gone up a bit. It's not significant. But if you're at the lower end of the income scale, then when your gas bill goes up, you are trying to cut any kind of spending which isn't completely essential everywhere. Now, obviously, the reason we're in this huge cost of living crisis is because there are many people where there is no non-essential spending to cut. So there are lots of people. Really good Joseph Rowntree report out, sort of talking about all the millions and millions and millions of people who are cutting back on essentials. That's like food, basic clothing, heating, the kind of stuff that isn't discretionary spending, right? So that took demand out of the economy from the lower end of the income spectrum. Now what we're seeing is demand is being taken out of the economy from people who were recently on the housing ladder. So as he's saying, that's going to be, you know, lower middle class people or younger middle class people. And the people who've got off scot-free through all of this are the very rich. So the very rich who own their assets outright, the people who already own their homes without a mortgage. Now, of course, not everyone who owns their home without a mortgage is going to be incredibly rich. That's a generational thing. But you are in an economically privileged situation because of all the reasons we've just talked about, right? Interest rates aren't going to affect you so much. And obviously, the super rich, whatever age they are, don't have to get their homes on a mortgage, right? You can just get your mum or your dad to buy you outright. This flat, your parents probably bought it because what they want is an asset in a city which will appreciate in value. So for them, it's just an investment. For you, as the child of the elite, you get to live there without a mortgage. So it works perfectly for you. So what we're doing at the moment is we're squeezing demand out of the economy for everyone except the very, very rich. And in fact, the very, very rich, because they've got assets, they're going to be getting even richer. Their spending power is going to be increasing. The more they spend, the harder it is to bring down inflation. So tax the rich, tax the rich. I mean, we could end so many segments on this show by saying the moral of the story is to tax the rich, but I don't think we can say it enough. So I will say it one more time, tax the rich.